Welcome to the Bullshit Free History Podcast. This is your host, Tatya. Episode 1. The First People and Some Big-Ass Mammals. Welcome to the Archaic period. Alright, squad, time to throw it way back. So, humans. Yeah, we've been around for a hot minute. As far as we know, the first of us showed up over 3 million years ago in Africa. Shout out to the motherland. At some point, someone got fed up with bare hands and thought, hey, let's smash things with rocks. And just like that, welcome to the Paleolithic era, also known as we hunt, we gather, we survive age. Around 40,000 years ago, we leveled up to people who actually start acting like us. You know, with language, better tools, and probably opinions about things that didn't matter. These upgraded humans spread across Africa, Europe, and Asia, slowly nudging out their earlier, less chatty cousins. What's up, Neanderthals? We'll take it from here. But don't get too comfy. The Earth at this point was basically one giant walk-in freezer. The northern reaches of Eurasia were smothered under ice sheets bigger than Australia and thicker than your grandmother's accent. Some were as tall as 10,000 feet. Think 10 Empire State Buildings stacked. These slabs came in like nature's wrecking balls, smashing up the landscape. Still, our ancient ancestors were out here grinding, trekking into Arctic tundras, and hunting literal Ice Age beasts. Their top target, the woolly mammoth. Imagine a shag-carpeted school bus with tusks. These things weighed around 10 tons and were basically one-stop shops. Meat for the winter, fur for fashion, fat for heating, and bones for do-it-yourself tent building. Bagging a mammoth was like Black Friday at Wally World. Elbows out, spears up, and no refunds. Eventually, some of these adventurous meat lovers wandered across the Bering Land Bridge into what is now Alaska. This was back when sea levels were low and borders didn't require passports. What happened next? Well, historians are still playing choose your own adventure, but we do know that these early Americans found themselves in what we can only describe as mega mammal Disneyland. We're talking mammoths, mastodons, which were basically the chunky cousins of elephants, bear-sized beavers, because normal ones are just too basic, 20-foot ground sloths that weighed more than a car, and glyptodonts, prehistoric armadillos with a serious weight problem. Also in the mix, camels, horses, cheetahs, deer, caribou, you name it. If it grazed, galloped, or gored, it was there. So here's the tea. Scientists discovered that some of the oldest skeletons in the Americas are genetic cousins to the ancient remains chilling near Lake Baikal in Siberia. That's right, your longest lost ancestors might have been Siberian ice road hunters chasing mammoth steak dinners. Around 30,000 years ago, these fearless nomads headed north and east, probably thinking, let's go where the mammoths go, and crossed what would eventually be called the Bering Strait. Back then, Earth was in full Ice Age mode. So much water was locked in glaciers that sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. These prehistoric road trippers eventually ran face first into Mother Nature's version of a brick wall. Two hulking ice sheets, the Cordilleran and Laurentide, basically throwing up a frozen access denied like the world's most passive-aggressive security system. For decades, scholars claim that around 12,000 years ago, global warming, yes, the original edition, melted enough of those icy giants to open an ice-free corridor between them. This glacial path led down to present-day Calgary and the Great Plains, eventually making its way to Clovis, New Mexico, where archaeologists found fancy stone blades and human bones, also known as scientific receipts. Case closed, right? Wrong. Bones and tools way older than that started popping up east of the ice sheets, like in Meadowcroft, Pennsylvania, Cactus Hill, Virginia, and Topper, South Carolina. And just when things couldn't get weirder, someone dug up a site in Montverde, Chile that could be as old as 30,000 years. Yeah, so how exactly did prehistoric people teleport through time and glaciers to get there? Cue the academic panic. Suddenly, the one-and-done migration theory looked more like a prehistoric plot hole. Now scholars are considering the idea of multiple migration waves from Asia, the first perhaps arriving around 30,000 years ago. But wait, there's more. DNA analysis shows that ancient folks living along the Pacific coast were not the same genetic mix as those in the Midwest or East Coast. So we might be looking at entirely different road trips here. The current theory, these early explorers didn't cross through Canada, they hugged the Pacific coastline, camping on beaches that are now chilling underwater thanks to post-ice age global warming. So yeah, climate change was still ruining things even back then. Bye-bye big beasties, the Great Mammoth Massacre. Once upon a prehistoric time, herds of giant, unsuspecting furballs were just vibing across the American plains until paleo-humans showed up armed with jet-black stone blades sharp enough to slice through mammoth hide like it was deli meat. These earlier hunters weren't playing. They didn't just hunt animals, they chucked entire herds of mammoths off cliffs, which was a prehistoric, brutal, and cohesive act of genocide against what was deemed a dangerous species. Also keep in mind, a single mammoth could feed dozens of people for weeks, not to mention provide bones for tools and hides for clothing and shelter. Archaeologists found loads of murder tools / spearheads in Clovis, New Mexico, and named the whole culture after them. Clovis points have since popped up everywhere, from Florida to the southern tip of South America, like prehistoric Yelp reviews saying, "We hunted here." And getting one of these mammoths took a ton of effort. Chasing a whole herd off a cliff could get you multiple mammoths in one coordinated effort. This was a very early example of working smarter, not harder. Anyway, around 12,000 years ago, the giant beasts started ghosting the Western Hemisphere. Mammoths, mastodons, saber-toothed cats, giant beavers the size of washing machines, a full-on ice age extinction. So what happened? Did paleo-humans overhunt them? Did climate change leave all that thick fur feeling like a curse? Were they too large, and did they take too much food to survive droughts? Probably all of the above to some extent. Either way, they started disappearing. To make things even messier, rising global temps melted ice sheets like forgotten popsicles, drowning the Bering Land Bridge, also known as the only highway between Asia and America. So not only were the big beasts gone, the door was slammed shut behind them. So, these twin disasters, extinction and isolation, reshaped human history in the Americas. Without big game or draft animals, the people of the region had to get creative. There were no horses to ride, no oxen to plow fields, and no wave after wave of Eurasian bugs and bacteria to help with immunity. While Europe, Asia, and Africa got hit with pandemics and plagues, fun times, the Americas developed a biological bubble, brilliant, unique, and untouched by microbial chaos of the old world. At least until 1492 showed up like an unwanted guest who brought everything. But let's not jump too far ahead just yet. We still have more to say about the archaic humans of the Americas. Surviving without the mega munchies. The big, delicious walking meat lockers are gone. Hurled into extinction thanks to a lethal combo of hungry paleo-humans and sudden climate chaos. What was left for the people of the region was a lot of hustle, a lot of shellfish, and way too many clams. With mammoths gone and the Ice Age wrapping up, food got weird. Also, population growth basically flatlined. Archaeological trash pits showed diets so low in protein and fat that fertility rates likely tanked. But the people of the Americas weren't quitters. They adapted. They became nomadic in a new way, bouncing between fishing holes, nut trees, hunting spots, and deer hideouts based on the seasons. Over time, they developed serious local game. East of the Mississippi, people mastered sneaking up on jittery deer, elusive beaver, and the occasional bear. Seriously, who thinks that's a good idea? On the Great Plains, they zeroed in on the few big boys still standing. The Great Bison, the original walking barbecue pit. These folks weren't isolated either. They traded, like a lot. Copper from Lake Superior made its way thousands of miles south, exchanged hand to hand for fancy rocks like chert. This stone was so sharp you could shave your legs with it. Along the Pacific Northwest and Alaska, some humans lucked out and stumbled into seafood buffets so rich they stuck around. Salmon were so plentiful you could scoop them into baskets, literally. And then nets and fishhooks followed. Then boats, bark canoes, skin boats, you name it. On the New England coast, it was all-you-can-eat shellfish. However, one would need 83,000 clams to equal the fat of one deer. As people stayed put longer, things got domestic. They built sturdier homes, made pottery to cook their squirrel stew, and also started burying loved ones with care. Around 15,000 before the Common Era, the society in Poverty Point, Louisiana turned dirt into art and real estate. Picture this: massive earthworks, 400 to 600 houses, a hawk-shaped mound with terraced levels like something out of Minecraft, and over 1 million cubic yards of soil moved by hand. No wheelbarrows, just baskets. This level of civic engineering didn't happen by accident. Poverty Point had leadership, planning, and enough food surplus to let people skip hunting in favor of massive dirt architecture. Unlike most archaic societies that were chill and egalitarian, Poverty Point had social hierarchy. Somebody was calling the shots, probably while holding a really nice chert blade. But like most ancient cities, Poverty Point eventually ghosted itself. Maybe there was a climate shift, resource depletion, political shakeup, no one knows. What followed? The Adena culture popping up across the Ohio and Mississippi valleys. Smaller mounds, but still vibing with ritual burials and part-time farming. Then came the Hopewell, somewhere between 200 before the Common Era to 500. They were true overachievers of mound building. They shaped earth into cones, squares, and even giant animals like birds and serpents visible from the sky. Basically, ancient geoglyphs before it was cool. By 400, these two faded into the soil, leaving behind mysteries, artifacts, and the reminder that permanence is a lie. The impermanence of these communities serves as a reminder that the transition from a nomadic existence of hunting and foraging to a settled life based on agriculture was slow and uneven. For the indigenous Americans living north of the Rio Grande, this was about to change. For people living in what is now Central America, it already had. The Archaic period is a reminder that survival isn't always glamorous, but is often ingenious. These early indigenous communities of North America didn't have golden temples, epic poetry, or divine monarch. What they had were stone tools, seasonal migration schedules, and an astonishing ability to adapt to a world that had quite literally lost its mammoth appeal. Rather than collapse under the weight of climate change and ecological loss, archaic peoples reimagined how to live. They fished, foraged, bartered, and built, not for glory, but because starvation is remarkably motivating. Their innovations, whether in constructing vast trade networks or moving mountains of earth, one woven basket at a time, speak to a quiet genius often overlooked in narratives obsessed with empire. These were not primitive wanderers stumbling through the woods. They were highly adaptive problem solvers, engineers of necessity, and stewards of landscapes long before colonial borders existed. While the record they left is fragmented, it is clear they laid the groundwork for what would eventually become complex societies across the continent. In the end, the Archaic period is not a prelude to civilization. It is civilization, just not the kind that comes with crowns and chariots. It's the kind built by hands, calloused from fishing nets and soil, not from wielding scepters. And perhaps that's the kind of resilience we should be paying more attention to. Thanks for listening.